All right, everyone, let's do this. How are you? Welcome to this week's episode of our podcast. It's called Is Breakfast Included? Thanks for stopping by. On the show this week, Lisa and I sit down with Serena Duffin. Now, Serena is a costumer. She's a member of the IETSE 705. She's a photographer, a stylist. She's worked on such projects as Alexander Payne's Nebraska. She's done 3 seasons on For All Mankind. And most recently, she was nominated for an Emmy for her work as a wardrobe supervisor on Griselda. That's the Netflix show Griselda, starring Sofia Vergara. Did you watch that? It was really good. Anyway, Serena took some time. She's very busy to sit down with us and tell us about her journey growing up in West Texas, spending summers in LA, basically joining the family business. Her father was a set designer, carpenter, etc. in Los Angeles. And he told us about her journey and how she's ended up where she is. It's very interesting. It's a really good story. I hope you enjoy it. Let's check it out. Tell everyone who you are.
Hi, I am Serena Duffin. I am a wardrobe stylist and a costumer in the film and television industry. I am a freelance photographer as well, and just a passionate, creative individual who's managed to actually have my creative juices supply me like the lifestyle that I get to live, which is so cool.
It is, right? It's a pretty cool feeling. So you're from West Texas originally.
I am. I grew up in a small town in West Texas called Midland. We're actually
Midland, Odessa. I know that.
Odessa, the oil
Yeah.
capital of the
Yeah.
of the world, really, or of the United States. And when I lived in Midland, it was like when we first moved to Texas, it was the oil boom, and it was like people were living in storage units for the opportunity to make millions in West Texas. Like it was so crazy in my hometown. Like just people were flocking all over to come and work in the oil industry. Now that is not what my family did at all. My mom was just a single working mom, and we were just, trying to survive in West Texas.
Yeah.
It was pretty wild.
Were your parents creative? Is your mom?
My dad is definitely creative. My mom is creative in her own right. She is like a amateur home builder and architect, but she has no like training in doing that. But that's her passion. She loves to do it. And my dad was actually a prop maker in the film industry. So he was the set and prop master. His first movie being The Addams Family.
Oh,
it's pretty cool.
For props, yeah, that's impressive.
He's like a master woodworker. He's very talented and still practices his craft. So he's definitely the creative energy in the family for sure.
So is he still doing props and stuff on film sets?
He retired, I guess about 8 years ago and moved to Oregon. But he finished up his career at the Warner Brothers they have like a furniture department. So that was his dream. He got to like work in the furniture department at Warner Brothers, just making custom furniture for movies and executives and whatever came through. So he loved it. And he still has his studio space in Oregon now that he still creates things for people freelance. It's pretty cool.
Does he miss it?
I don't think so. Film industry, like your industry, Bernie, it's, very challenging, long hours. So we work, 12-hour day minimums. Like that's where we start. And it can be, very demanding, and you're always on your feet, and it's challenging on the body, and it's hard to stay physically like in good health while you're doing all of this stuff. It's really challenging. So yeah, I don't think my dad misses the industry. I think he misses California a little bit, but I don't think he misses.
Yeah. And then when you break it down, like we make less than minimum wage an hour.
Right. When you really think about like the exchange of life for paycheck,
Yeah,
sometimes it's just like you have to really hone in on your love for craft at that stage.
exactly. Yeah.
Like I really love what I'm doing. I really love creating characters and working with the design team to build those characters. And you have to really, really like have an appreciation for what it is that you're doing in order to exchange literally everything
Yeah.
for the job.
What inspired you to pursue your career in costume design?
In costume design, I started out in fashion design. I studied fashion design,
Mm.
and it I joke because it was like, I went to college before the internet. It's like we didn't have like computers per se. It was like we're still using, libraries to do research. And now everybody is so fortunate.
Microfiche.
Yeah, everybody's so fortunate to have all this information at their hands. And I wish that I had had that opportunity to have a little bit more information before I dove into design, because as it turns out, my forte is not necessarily in design. Like I am an excellent pattern maker and I really love like the art of design. But at the end of the day, I was just like, I don't want to work in a factory setting. I don't, it didn't really appeal to me. I think that my true passion and like my language, how I communicate, is more like tactile. I like to source and gather. So I love like textures and textiles and colors and, just putting things together in that way. So I discovered fashion styling soon after graduating with my degree in fashion design. I discovered fashion styling, which is completely different and uses like a totally other side of your brain. Um, and I just understood quickly that that was kind of more how I was able to communicate my art, and like it was definitely for me. But, also it was very challenging because there was no internet, and it's like when you tell somebody like, "Hey, I want to work in the fashion industry," like, how do I like, "Oh, I like your job. Like, how did you get this job?" People are like, in the early 2000s, we're not very quick to give away that information. How do you become a fashion stylist? Like now everybody's a fashion stylist. Like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
go to Instagram and everybody thinks they're a photographer, a fashion stylist, like some sort of expert just because they say they are, which is great.
Model.
That was not how I came up.
Yeah.
It was a lot of trial and error and kind of figuring it out myself because nobody would tell me
It was
what.
very guarded.
Very guarded. Very guarded. So so yeah, I discovered fashion styling, and from there just, started building a portfolio. It wasn't until many years after I like graduated from college and had a totally other career in the fashion industry that I finally moved back to Los Angeles and was like, okay, well, I've had success in fashion styling, but that's not really what happens here in Los Angeles. Like the film industry is in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So I kind of started going down that path into figuring out how to become a union member, which was a whole other thing, to join my union in order for me to actually do what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
That was a crazy path because, like, in order to join the union, it's, you need 30 days on a union project, or a show has to flip, or, you know, I was like, who do I have to pay to just like get my days? Like, I
Yeah.
beg it took me when I first got to Los Angeles and I was working as a PA on like a film. One of the costumers was like, "It's going to take you 6 years to get into the industry," and I was like,
Oh my goodness. Seems a little
"That's
long.
I don't think so." And sure enough, it took me 6 years. I kid you not, like probably to the day for
Yeah.
me to
Wow.
take all of my
That's
30 days
wow.
For
and finally able to join the union so I could do the work that I'm currently doing now.
yeah. And for those not familiar with the term, you said of a show flips. What does that mean?
So like you could be hired as a costumer in my case on a non-union project that then flips to being union,
Uh-huh.
and then you can get your days. So that happens, but it never happened for me.
So you could have been on a project that was non-union for 25 days, and then it flipped.
Right.
Hypothetically, yeah.
And then you at least get your 25 days because,
Yeah.
and plus the rest of it.
Yeah.
That never happened to me. I had to, and they fall off every calendar year. So you get really close and then you start losing rapid days in succession. You're like, okay, well, that commercial that I did or that, television show that I worked on and convinced somebody to give me some union days on, like, they just start falling off. So every year it's like, okay, let's try again.
Yeah.
It's very challenging.
Frustrating, I bet.
Very frustrating. And it makes you like incredibly either like resilient or you abandon ship quickly.
Yeah.
I got close to abandoning ship pretty quickly, but Kevin, as a matter of fact, was like, no, you're so close. Like, let's just like, you have to get it done.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I read that your first gig in the industry, I guess it was Alexander Payne's Nebraska.
That's
And
right. That's right.
what was that like? I love that movie, and that movie received so much positive critical praise,
It was a great first opportunity for me, like a great first experience. Um I went in, it was like very last minute. The costume designer called me and I had actually like interned my first job back to Los Angeles. She had hired me as an intern and quickly realized, I have my whole background in like fashion manufacturing and like my whole other career. And I was obviously like, it was clear to everyone I was very advanced for somebody who had never done this type of work before. I got it very quickly. So I had interned for this costume designer, Wendy Chuck, who was Alexander Payne's costume designer. And she called me out of the blue one day and was like, hey, can you fly to Nebraska in 2 days and work set on this movie? And it was just me and the trailer costumer, my friend Margaret. And it was just like the two of us running set. It was wild. It was really interesting. My very first experience, like on set on a big major production and in the middle of nowhere in Nebraska. And it was pretty incredible. Just really great to watch. Like set is so interesting because you really get to see how the magic is made.
Yeah.
And it's very cool. It's very cool. And I mean, Bruce Stern and Will Forte, Bruce Stern is a legend. And it couldn't be more blessed.
After that experience, going through that, did it give you the confidence to say, yeah, I can do this?
Oh no, not at all. because that experience, I wasn't yet in my union yet. So after that experience, because that show was filmed in Nebraska, I came back to Los Angeles and none of that experience, it was kind of like null and void. So I still had to like traverse through the mud to try to get my union days again. And, for the privilege of working in this industry. So it still took me a long time after that because I want to say that was 2013, I think. I cannot remember. I feel like it was 2013 maybe. And I was still non-union here in Los Angeles and costume designing whatever I could and getting my days as a PA and just trying to make those connections to get those union days. So it took me still several years before I was actually like in the union working solidly.
So when you're working as a PA on a film set, as opposed to like working in the wardrobe department, so your days counted no matter what you did on the set.
No. As a PA, because you're a costume PA, and so
okay.
Yeah, they don't want you doing anything. It's like you're getting lunch and coffee and making sure that the house is clean, essentially.
Yeah.
Like, you're not allowed to do anything. So none of those days counted. So I was a PA for a long time when I could. And what I did, because like working as a PA, like you don't make much money at all. So I was still like doing my fashion styling and booking commercials and booking editorials still, while I was trying to earn all of my union days. So it was like the hustler life for sure.
Yeah.
It was a
Sounds
arduous
super stressful.
process. It was very stressful, and you're making no money because it's like,
Yeah.
well, a PA makes $150 a day, maybe.
Yeah.
And living in Los Angeles, like that does not take you very far. I think living anywhere really doesn't take you very far. And I just, yeah, it's very interesting from going from like literally going from broke to actually like, oh, okay, like now I make like now I'm like I feel like I'm a member of society now. Can
You know,
finally-
a lot of folks look at this industry and they see it from the way we did through the TV and movies and so forth. And everyone thinks it's just so I'm going to go out to LA, I'm going to get a gig, and I'm going to live this life. It's like that in all aspects of the entertainment industry. And you said earlier, like you almost bowed out, you almost gave up. Are you glad you stuck around?
I am, and I am. I mean, I think there's something really great about just like the resilience and like standing. Like you see so many successful people are successful because they don't quit. And I think like not quitting is such a huge part of like growth and expansion and becoming who you are, like truly meant to be. And, there's some, because I kind of bounced around from Texas to Los Angeles to San Francisco to Austin to New York, back to Los Angeles, I had so many like, shifts in my environment that when I moved back to Los Angeles, felt that it was very important for me to just like get some roots over here and like see what it's like just to be still for a bit and to really commit to my like a career in myself and really into the growth. Not that I regret any part of like my gypsy lifestyle 100%, because I was still following true to my creative endeavors and my free spirit nature. But there is something to be said just about, being committed and following through to what you're capable of doing.
Yeah.
I knew that like getting into the union and working in this industry was something I feel like I was almost grandfathered into doing, just with my dad and my uncle and just my whole family kind of working in some aspect in the film industry. I was like, there's absolutely no reason why I can't also be there as well.
Yeah. Yeah. The family business.
A family business.
So you wear many hats in the wardrobe industry. I don't know the proper terminology. Like you're a wardrobe shopper, you're a wardrobe. What exactly does a wardrobe shopper do? Costume design industry.
Right. So we're in my union. I'm in local 705.
Uh-huh.
That is the Film and Television Costumers Union.
Okay.
There's another union for our designers. They have like a separate union. So a designer and assistant costume designer, they have their own union. But then everybody else in the department is under local 705. So we're costumers. That's what we are. And within the costume like hierarchy, I don't want to say hierarchy because we're all a team.
Yeah.
But there are different positions. Like there are like on the road, we have a costume supervisor, which is like team leader, let's say. And was my role on Griselda. I was the costume supervisor. Right now, I am a shopper and a buyer. So I work closely with my design team. So with my costume designer, my assistant costume designers, I basically source all of the clothing that comes into our office for our characters. So we get like a script and our supervisor will break down the script So we know absolutely every single character could be like 500 characters, like so many bodies for us. They'll break down the characters. They'll figure out how many changes each character has. And from there, we'll start building closets. So basically, I go out and I source and start building closets for particular characters. And from there, we start creating looks to put on camera. They'll, there's like a whole approval process with the director and production. And, it's sometimes not as easy as just finding something that you think is great, because you have to find something that you think is great that suits the character. But then also it's like in the budget and also user friendly for the EPs and the director and the consumer to get behind. So depending on the project, it can be really, really fun. I was a buyer for Young Rock, which was on NBC, which is it's kind of like the little almost biographical story of Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of fun because it takes place in Hawaii in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. It's like all to current. So that is so much fun because, in that particular show, it was all about color and pattern, and they wanted to have a lot of fun. It was like a really fun show. And the show that I'm currently on, which is For All Mankind, which is on Apple TV, we're in space. And it's like we're in space, we're a bunch of scientists, it's essentially NASA. And it's a lot more challenging for me to find, and for our team, I think, to find things that are user friendly for our audience.
Yeah.
And for the look of the show, because the look of the show is also, it's like very story driven.
Yeah.
Whereas like Young Rock was like visually very exciting, and our story is very story driven. And so it's like they don't necessarily want to see costumes. Like we're not here to be at the forefront, which can be really challenging sometimes. Because then sometimes you just feel like everything is starting to look the same.
Yeah. So for like a show like Young Rock, you're working with all these colors, but you're not worried about someone saying, well, no, and Rocky Maivia didn't wear that particular outfit in this match or whatever.
Well,
but
totally.
For All Mankind, you're kind of like, you got to stay.
I have a very narrow lane for me
Yeah.
and it's challenging because it's like, we always joke, it's like when you're looking for something, you can never find it. But when you're not looking for something, that's all you can find.
Yeah.
It's just the nature of the beast. It's the nature of the beast.
Yeah. Story of our life, right?
For sure.
What's a typical day look like for you?
Well, I have to be at the studio at 7. So luckily I live so close to where I'm working out of Sony right now. So I wake up at 5:30 and I have about an hour to get myself together. Try to do a little meditation in the morning if it's at all possible. Do like a 5-minute meditation, hopefully, on a good day. But I'm at the studio by 7. And it's like check in with the design team, see what the needs are. We have, now that we're shooting, we have about three fittings a day, essentially. So we're constantly looking ahead so that my team who does the fittings, which will be our key costumers and my costume designer, just making sure they have literally everything that they need, like everything. We have to think of it all because you just never know. And we need to cover all of the bases. So in the morning, it's all about like prepping for the day to make sure they have everything, looking ahead into the future, creating a shopping list. And then I'll go, out into the world. The store's open at 10 or 11. And depending on my needs, I'll, get to shop all day, which can be fun and, also exhausting. Everybody, you're just shopping all day. And it's like, yeah, but I have to know where to go also, because not everything is just as easy as going to Nordstrom.
Yeah.
You know,
There's not a
sometimes
space store right
there's
down the
no
road.
space store. Yeah. And luckily we build all of our spacesuits are being built in-house this season. So that's super helpful. And I think my costume designer really appreciates that. Um, so that's, I think, super helpful for her because she doesn't have to traverse across town.
So
But yeah,
is it kind of a mix of purchasing already made pieces of clothing and then designing pieces of clothing?
absolutely. Like sometimes I can be going to, Los Angeles has a really great garment district. So sometimes I'm downtown sourcing fabrics, trims, stuff like that to bring back to the designer where she'll like make a decision on, what she wants to do. I just was working on 1923 just for a couple of weeks for
Yeah.
their season, which was a lot of fun. And Janie Bryant does a lot of like builds. Like it was really nice to watch her work because she'll fit on like a already existing garment. So, obviously 1920s, there aren't very many pieces from the 1920s that are still like in usable condition. They're 100 years old. So it's hard to come by to begin with. And then what you can source, won't survive,
Yeah.
Yeah.
summer in Texas shooting for winter in 1923. So they'll fit on the actor in like a vintage like period piece, and then from there she'll get her approvals, and from there she'll build her costumes.
Yeah.
So we have like in our industry we have incredible pattern makers and seamstresses. Like we have some truly talented people who can just make anything. And that show, I was like very honored, sorry, the dog. Very honored to watch her process because I just working on a contemporary piece like my show right now, we do have a lot of builds, obviously, because we are in make believe land, we're in space. So there are a lot of builds on that aspect, but for the most part, it's a lot of contemporary pieces. So I don't get to do the fun builds and like the creating something out of nothing all the
Yeah.
time. But when I do, it's really cool to witness.
Do you
And
also do all the accessories
oh yeah,
that go along with it?
yeah.
And
There are some accessories that kind of borderline like props versus costumes, which is like there's a fine line between a prop and a costume. But a lot of designers will take the lead, especially like on if it's a very important like outfit and our lead needs to feel very, expensive and powerful. It's like she's gonna choose, the watch, the handbag, all of those pieces that can kind of go. But I obviously source all of those pieces for her.
Right on.
neat.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah,
you
it's fine.
do
We
you
have quite
ever
a collection.
do you ever run into the actors accidentally taking something home?
Well, I've heard stories. It's never I've never run into anybody doing that, but I've definitely heard stories of things accidentally being worn home, or for
Yeah.
the most part, people are pretty good about getting it back, especially if it's working. If it's
Right on.
working, everybody understands that there is an element of continuity that has to go into what we do. So if like not everything is just going to get shot out in the day, sometimes we have to go back to an entire costume. So sometimes things get accidentally get worn home, but everything finds its way back to us.
There was a story of Jason Isbell, who was on Killers of the Flower Moon. He had a role in that, and he took his hat home
Oh,
at
no.
the end of filming, and they actually came back and got it. They asked him to send it back, but I believe his manager or something eventually got the hat back. He loved that hat so much that, yeah. But
Yeah,
he took it without asking.
that's very funny. Well, I appreciate the costume department going back to fetch there. It's depending, you never know. It's like it could be a rental, and the rental houses have exorbitant prices.
Oh
Like
yeah.
something is missing, like you may think that it's just some run over cowboy hat that's like all moth eaten and whatnot, but for them it could be worth like $5,000.
Yeah.
You're like, this is a $30 hat that somebody ran over with a truck. But it's like all of that aging and like the replacement value on some items is just like, whoa.
And does that come down to you when you're the buyer?
No, not necessarily. It kind of comes down to all of us.
Okay. That's
Kind
when
of
it's a team.
But something like that hat, I'm sure they probably had multiples on. Like that's another thing that goes into what I do is we have to look ahead into the script. And sometimes if somebody spills coffee on their shirt or like, written into the script or gets shot, that happens a lot. Or, falls down the stairs, depending on, blood or a stunt, like you might need multiples on these pieces. And so that can be really challenging, especially if you're doing something in a period standpoint. Like on Griselda, we had so many multiples needed. And so we had to, Griselda was all period and all of those multiples had to be built. So it was, again, taking like our vintage inspiration sample piece and making, 5 to 8, burgundy polyester pants to suit our needs, for
Wow.
like for a robbery or
That's
for,
a lot. That's a lot of the same
it,
thing.
it can be a lot. Yeah. Because you have to anticipate the needs of set. It's like if the director wants to, reset and go back to one and do the whole thing over again, it's like, all right, need clean everything for the actor. And you just don't know. We can't be like, oh, okay, well, we can do that twice.
Well, let's talk about Griselda.
Yeah.
The wardrobe was recently nominated for an Emmy. Congratulations, by the way.
Much.
How did you get the project?
Um, well, my colleague Safua was asked to be the costume designer. There was actually two costume designers for that project, and Safua was actually the supervisor at the time, and our first designer had to part ways with production, and Safua was offered the job of the design role, which is huge for her, and I'm so proud of her. She did such a great job.
She's also nominated.
She's also nominated. Yeah. I had worked with her on several projects. And at some point when we were wrapping, I think it was Colin in Black and White, I said to Sufua, I was like, hey, if there was ever an opportunity for me to like learn, uh, you know, your role as a costume supervisor, I would love to learn from you. I think she's great at what she does. And she called me out of the blue. I was just wrapping up Young Rock season 2. And she was like, I have this opportunity. Would you be my supervisor? And it was the first time I've ever supervised. And it was like stepping into really big shoes, into a really, really, really big project. And they were, I want to say, like a month into shooting. So I wasn't there the entire time. I wasn't there from start to finish. I mean, they had an incredibly long prep time. It was mid-COVID. So, between COVID shutdowns and, actors getting sick, directors getting sick, like just everything that happens in production during that time of like the false start, they had a really long prep time. So I got in and we had, I think, just begun filming at that stage. And it was crazy. It was one of the hardest experiences of my life. I think I was with that production for maybe 6 months.
Wow.
Hard to say. I think that I've slept since then. Thank goodness. But it was, being in charge of a huge crew. I think at the height of our crew, we would have, between 30 to 35 people working within our department, between the custom made shop, the background costumers, all of the day players that would come. We would have hundreds of pre-fits throughout the week just to get everybody to film, and all of these incredible period costumers. Like, our costumers were incredible. And as you can tell, I mean, I think it looks just, I'm so proud of the work that we did. And but it was kind of like an out of body experience in a way, because it was just like such long hours, such demanding work.
Yeah.
And you know, not to mention the fact that it was the first time I had supervised. So it's like demanding work on top of a new role for me. So it was challenging in a lot of ways, and so satisfying at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And to be nominated, I just can't believe it. It's like so and how it works is you get nominated for an episode. So the episode that we're nominated for is episode 105, and there's 6 episodes in that miniseries. So it's the second to last episode, and it's kind of like Griselda's she's losing it at this point. She thinks everyone's out to get her. It's in the 80s. It's a huge party scene, and it's wild. So that's the episode that we're nominated for, and that's it's also like important for me to mention that because we had 2 designers, that was the episode that was purely Safua's, which is fantastic. So that was all Safua's design, and Joe, our assistant costume designer, he was incredible. He's a dear friend of mine. Like, the team just did such great work, and
They really did.
really proud of it. Just really proud of it, and it's just kind of crazy because like we're nominated with some serious heavy hitters. Like, I really hope that we win. But regardless, it's just like such an honor to be acknowledged by your peers for doing good work.
Yeah. Yeah.
At the end of the day, I just think it's, I always thought, oh, it's so cheesy. Like, oh, I'm just to be nominated but truly, like, just to be nominated is enough of, it's just really cool.
What did your family say?
Well, my mom has been out of the country, unfortunately. They're really proud. They're really proud. My dad is just blown away. He just thinks it's so cool. So hopefully we can bring home an Emmy and make everybody really proud.
Good luck. Yeah. Good luck. But even if not, like you said, you did such a good job. Yeah. We both watched it.
Yeah.
And
we're both kind of obsessed with that whole era of the Narcos in Brazil.
Absolutely. Me too. It's like, cool. I mean, I love the 70s and the early 80s. It's like, for me, fashion wise, it's so much fun. Yeah. And there's so many great elements. And I think that it's something that I've always personally like really resonated with. Mm-hmm. So it just kind of made perfect sense.
Yeah.
It was like,
so if you guys win, do you get to give a speech and
I think that I have to be prepared to say something.
Right on. Well,
I know. I hadn't really thought about it. And Kevin was like, what are you going to say if you win? And I was like, oh, God. I guess they need to put some thought into that.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've got a 1 out of 5 chance of taking home the trophy. So we'll see.
Like a project like Griselda, how do you manage the budget on something like that? Is that your job when you're the supervisor?
It is my job as a supervisor. And this particular job was complex, I'm going to say, because Safua had already been in that role. But yeah, it's a lot of numbers. It's a lot of staying on top of everything. And, it's between custom made and rentals. Rentals are really complex because, you have like a period. And like I said, the show was in a really long prep. And so it just kept getting pushed and pushed. And so rentals, you have like, depending on the costume shop, you have like an 8 to 12 week production rental, and then it flips. It goes, then you got another. So it starts to add up and to snowball really, really quickly. So trying to stay on top of that was definitely challenging,
Yeah.
to say the least, because I mean, we had so much stock for Griselda in particular. Like, I mean, rooms and rooms and rooms of period clothing, and it was really hard to track. And because I hadn't been there from day one, it was incredibly hard to track. And at the end of the day, it was an incredible learning experience.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Do you ever,
budgetary nightmares.
are there ever any creative disagreements on set?
I yes, there can be creative disagreements for sure. I on set, not so much. It's like hopefully by the time we actually get a costume to set, everything's been ironed out. But the stages in getting things to that stage where everybody's happy with what's being seen on camera, that sometimes can be really challenging. And I the dress that Sophia wears in episode 105, I mean, she's in it the entire episode. So that dress itself was a lot had to be considered for that dress. A lot of creative meetings between, the design team and Sophia to, make everybody feel comfortable in the choices, the color, the cut, the fabrication, everything. I mean, it was it took a lot of creative process to get to that final dress, which I think everybody was very happy with.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, sometimes it's not so easy.
Imagine.
I have an off question. Sometimes when I'm watching a show, it'll show a guy and he's in the office or he's in a room and he's talking to someone. He's like, the fiscal year or whatever. And then it pans to the other character and it comes back to him and then his shirt's unbuttoned. But
Yes.
whose job is that? And who gets fired after that scene?
Well, it's unfortunate because oftentimes people don't notice that until we go into editing.
Oh,
But we have our onset costumers, and
yeah,
between our onset costumers and there is a script, like a script supervisor that's
yeah.
on set at all times, and Scripty knows the ins and the outs of everything. And like Scripty's eyes are glued to the screen at all times. And normally Scripty will catch that.
Yeah.
Normally. It's always like terrible. It's like our nightmare when we notice stuff like that, especially after the fact.
Yeah. Like
But it can happen, we're at the end of the day, we are just humans.
Yeah, I always wondered like the Starbucks cup in Game of Thrones, like
Totally. I don't think anybody lost their jobs over that Starbucks
no.
cup.
But I always wondered that, like, I know that I'm sure because the movie set, a movie production has a lot of moving parts and pieces going at the same time. Not everyone can go like, oh, make sure his shirt's buttoned, because the take could have been in 2 days,
Totally. And at the end of the day, it is the set costumer, it's the actor, and it's Scripty.
Yeah.
It's like everybody has to be responsible for what's happening. I mean, just as like the actor is responsible for their lines, I feel like they need to be very aware of like, this is what I am currently wearing. And even if I have to go back to that in a day or two or half an hour or after lunch, I need to remember that this is how I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
Just as I in character.
There's always assholes like me at home or in the theater going,
I know. I do.
Got you. Do you have any projects coming up that you could talk about?
Well, I'm on For All Mankind until January, so I'm very happy for that. last year was challenging because we had no work. So we're all just trying to, ride the wave that we're currently on and hope that once this job is done, there's something else more incredible will come along.
Well, you also do photography in addition to wardrobe styling, and
I
you've
do.
put them together. And could
Yeah,
you tell us a little bit about that?
I would love to. Yeah, last year we had a dual strike in my industry, and it was WGA and SAG-AFTRA. So nothing was happening. And even commercial work was even low. So I've been like a amateur photographer several years, and I just launched a photography business. And that is a lot of fun because I'm like pairing my love for fashion, like for styling, and pairing it with my photography. So I'm kind of able to give a non-celebrity a really cool experience where I curate like a whole rack, depending on the theme. It's sometimes really like fun avant-garde. Like I did a mermaid shoot with this actress Corolla, which was really beautiful. And so I curated an entire rack and then shot her at the beach. So it's fun. I have this opportunity to kind of creative direct, um, you know, just real people and creating some really beautiful art pieces that they'll have in their home forever.
And how is it going since you started that?
It's been going great. I unfortunately because now I'm like back to my full-time job, which is thank God. I've like had to put a pause in it, but I am trying to like gear up and launching some openings for the weekends.
How do you manage the workload when you're doing all these different projects at once? And
That's a great question. It can be very time consuming. And right now I am just trying to juggle trying to be a person again while working 60-hour work weeks, which is why it's kind of like taken me a second to get back into the photography, like fun creative direction avenue. Um, So hopefully that's why I say hopefully I can get back to at least like shooting one client. I would love to get like one client a month. That's my dream. Give me plenty of time to edit, like to prep, edit, creative direct, all of that
Yeah.
jazz.
And your industry, very much like Kevin's industry, is feast or famine. It's either all there or it's not. But once it's there, like right now, you're just constantly working. How do you find time for just you?
You really have to like carve out that time, right? It's like that 5 minutes in the morning that I do before I take a shower, got my red light mask on and I like do my little Zen moment. Like you really have to kind of multitask the self-care aspect. And I think it's for me, it's sticking to a routine, especially on the weekends. I have like my gym hour on Saturday, I have my yoga on Sunday, and just like making sure I stay firm in those aspects. I think it's really like on the weekends, it's about routine. And luckily, my even though I am physically, away from my house for 12 to 13, 14 hours a day, it's I still have like opportunities to, check in with my friends or, try to be like some normal person throughout the day. It can be really overwhelming. You get into a project and it's like the project is all consuming.
Yeah.
And it's you can have as many like good intentions to complete a self project or whatever, but if you don't like concretely iron out the time to do it, like the job will sweep you away and it's very easy to get to taken away by it.
Yeah. It's hard to be a normal person in the industry, isn't it?
Yes, it
Yeah.
is hard to be a normal person.
if you could go back in time and you could talk to your younger self. You're just moving to LA. kind of advice would you give yourself?
Oh, I would remind myself that, again, not to give up. I would remind myself to stay resilient and to learn to listen to yourself sooner
Mm.
and not necessarily the advice or whims of the people around you. I think that ultimately, like, you know what you need to do. And sometimes I think, especially as a young person, is always looking for advice. But really, I think what they need to do is like go within and be more silent to
Oh.
hear what the bigger picture actually is. And know that you don't know everything. I see that a lot in, the young people coming into my industry now. They think that they have all of the answers, and it's like, no, sometimes experience really does go a long way. And it's important to be humble.
Yeah. Well, now, where can people find you online, your photography and anything else,
Excellent. Yeah, I have my website is just serenaduffin.com. That's all photography, wardrobe styling. I'm on IMDb. I can be found under Serena Duffin. I think there's another Serena Duffin, but there's only one me. So Serena Duffin on IMDb, or on Instagram, I'm evoke_Serena. And
Links to all of that.
there's links to all of that there.
Okay.
Well, Serena, we thank you for taking the time. I know you've been super busy. I hope you give a different answer than Kevin, but our podcast is called Is Breakfast Included? And if we were having breakfast, what would you have?
Well, I know what Kevin would have. and sometimes my answer is the same, but I am really into right now these creamy Parmesan eggs. And they're fucking delicious. It's almost like an Alfredo poached egg.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
That sounds good.
Very decadent. Very decadent.
Just eggs with Parmesan mixed in, or
Here's what we do. No. It's like no. I cook a lot, so it's one of my favorite things to make. It's like tons of Parmesan cheese and cream.
Oh wow.
Butter, Parmesan cream, eggs, or butter, Parmesan, the cream. You let that bubble up. You let it bubble up nice. Like, have you ever made eggs purgatory? Eggs
No.
purgatory is like a tomato sauce, which is also delicious. Eggs purgatory is a tomato sauce, and you let it bubble, and then you crack an egg inside of the sauce, and you let it kind of soft poach. It's that. So you make your little well, you have your little cream sauce, Parmesan cream sauce, which is essentially a Alfredo sauce at that point, if you're going to make a homemade Alfredo sauce.
Yum.
Make the little well, you crack your little eggs, you do a little poached egg, and with some thyme on top.
Oh my god.
Well, we're going to have to try that.
Yeah, that is
the recipe.
inspiring.
Yeah. Yes,
I would expect nothing less from you. That is a great breakfast.
Well, thank you
so
again.
Much. Yeah.
Yeah. And congratulations again. We're going to be rooting for you.
Oh,
totally.
September 8th. We'll find out September 8th.
Well, we'll be watching.
Thank you guys so much. What an honor to be
on.
here, and I appreciate your time today.
The honor's ours. It was good talking to you, Serena.
All right, bye, guys.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Right on, Serena Duffin. Great story, right? She's super talented. You can find out more about Serena at her website, serenaduffin.com. You can follow her on Instagram at evoke_Serena. We want to wish her and her team all the luck in the world at the Emmys. I hope they take home the big prize. While you're online, you can check out our website, isbreakfast.com. Rate and review our show. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube. Check out our store. Support. Anyway, guys, thanks a lot. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next week.